Pisces friends, the cosmos is inviting you into a deeply spiritual, reflective chapter of rest in your life, a chapter of closure and subconscious healing. Over the next year and a half, your greatest growth lies in retreat, in solitude, in meditation, and letting go of control. Even if your busy daily routines and practical checklists try to pull you back in. Let's find out more. Friends, this video forecast is for your sun, your moon, or your rising sign, and you can check all three videos and they will tell you how the stars are going to affect your life this week. I'm Kesenya and welcome to the Astro News and Weather Report for the third week of July 2026. This is tropical Vedic astrology that I use, not sidereal astrology. Do look it up if you need to know the difference. And yes, I am a real person, not AI. Remember, you may be going through significant personal effects to your chart that can change the dynamic of what I will describe here today, which is much more general. Getting a reading with an astrologer can really help for those more personal interpretations that are needed. And currently, I have a special urgent question reading available for only $65. Things that have a yes-no answer, like will my boyfriend come back? Will I get the job? Will I sell my house? Ask me a yes or no question and let astrology support you with its celestial answers, my friends. Well, get ready one and all because the nodes are about to change signs. This is happening on the 26th of July and we're talking about the true node changing signs here, not the mean node. There is a difference. The mean node won't change until the 19th of August. The true node is changing this week. What a huge day that is going to be astrologically, and I can't wait. Leo and Aquarius, it is your turn to experience an 18-month profound, life-changing influence, but we're all going to feel it to some level or another. But the nodes are moving into your sign, Leo and Aquarius, on your axis. This is a shifting of energy, not only because of the change of signs, but because of the change of modality, where the nodes have been in mutable signs for the last 18 months. Now they are moving into fixed signs. And this will move us out of the energy of transformation, flexibility, and adaptability that is associated with mutable signs and into the energy of maintaining, of holding, of consistency. Fixed energy encourages us to preserve what is important in our lives, to stabilize what is precious to us, and to stabilize anything that might be precarious in our lives, and also to sustain all that is good and all that is helpful. That's what fixed energy is all about. We initiate things in cardinal energy times. We make things better, take them to another level with mutable signs, and we hold all that improvement and positivity when we're in fixed sign energy. But of course, there is a shadow side. We can tend to cling to old worn-out ways, old worn-out structures, old systems that really should be getting the boot when we're in fixed energy. Something to keep in mind for sure. If you have the North Node in in Aquarius and the South Node in the sign of Leo in your birth chart, then the next 18 months will bring about your nodal return. This is an important period of life. It only happens roughly every 19 years. And if you are around 18, 36, 54 or 72 years old, you are going to be experiencing this astrological transit. As you can see, it only happens 4 to 5 times in a lifetime. Very powerful time indeed. For an in-depth look at what this means for you, you might enjoy taking my Midlife Astrology short course, where I discuss this transit and its effects in greater depth. It doesn't mean you have to be in your midlife to enjoy that course. You can be 18 years old and still discover what that transit has in store for you. Now, in our natal charts, and to a certain extent by transit too, the North Node represents our destiny, and where we are hungry for more of that energy. Whereas the South Node represents releasing and letting go. The South Node also represents our karmic skill sets, particularly in the natal chart, things we developed in another lifetime or maybe early in this lifetime, but things that it's time to evolve out of, time to leave behind. And often it represents where we need to pay some kind of karmic dues before progress can occur in our life. Let's explore this more in the transiting effect that we're going to be experiencing, the Leo South Node effect. Over the next 18 months in society and in mundane astrology, which means world astrology, we can expect to see some significant changes in Leo type areas of our culture. Leo rules monarchy, heads of state, top tier executives, and centralized authority figures. That's just to name a few. This transit frequently coincides with the downfall of such people, or the forced retirement of such people, or intense scrutiny of prominent world leaders, dictators, or highly visible CEOs. Bring it on. It's time. Roll out that Epstein list again. It exposes corruption, even greater than what we've had before. It exposes incompetence at the absolute top of the hierarchy. It's a signaling energy that the era of the lone, untouchable, tyrannical ruler is meeting its resistance and coming to an end. That is some of the good stuff that the South Node moving through Leo can bring. Leo is also the sign of fame, glamour, entertainment, and individual ego. The collective experiences a profound exhaustion when the South Node moves through Leo, exhaustion with celebrity culture, with influencer worship, with superficial fame. The public often turns on public figures who appear overly self-absorbed, narcissistic, and out of touch. So look out, Kardashians, your day is done. Populist leaders who rely purely on personal charisma rather than substance find their base eroding, or their tactics failing to hold in the same way. People can see right through them and they've had a gutful. Does this remind you of anybody? I'm sure it reminds many of you of many people in the public eye. Now, because Leo rules show business, it rules creative industries, it rules the luxury market, the South Node acts like a vacuum cleaner in these areas. Hollywood, major theatre sectors, high-end luxury brands often face economic recessions when the South Node moves through Leo. They can also go through some sort of structural collapse or major labour strikes because the collective, that means you and I, the masses, demand a shift away from elite wealth. Creative trends also shift away from shallow, glitzy, or self-indulgent entertainment towards something deeper, more community-minded and more gritty narratives, and that's driven by the North Node moving through Aquarius, which we'll discuss shortly. So that's what's happening on a global level with this transit of the South Node through Leo. What about the South Node through Leo on a personal level? And then later on in this video, we'll break it down for all signs. Well, when the South Node moves through the sign of Leo, we find that we tend to relinquish the need for external validation. We don't care what so-and-so says outside of us. Big deal. I know who I am on the inside. I know my worth. I know my value, so screw you. So it is quite empowering in that sense. We also end the constant performing for others, the constant needing approval, seeking approval, or needing to feel special, or needing to feel elite or uniquely recognized. We couldn't care less anymore. That can be a healthy thing. We also learn that our self-worth cannot depend on a standing ovation. When we stop chasing praise, we free up massive amounts of creative energy at this time. And the South Node's here to help that come about. Leo energy, I'm a Leo sun. We love the grand narrative. But the South Node here can manifest as unnecessary personal drama. So we want to let go of that. We want to let go of the drama queen, the prima donna kind of behaviors. Watch out for taking things deeply personally, creating sort of a main character complex where everything revolves around your pride, or you dig your heels in a fixed sign, stubborn way just to save face. These things have got to go now. There's got to be more grace here with that than that would otherwise afford. So this is a temporary period, an 18-month period of purging. Situations will arise that intentionally deflate your ego, my friends. Be aware of it. It's going to happen. Or you might have situations that unfold in your life that are going to force you to compromise, or that are going to reveal to you where you've been overly stubborn and overly rigid. So these are the kinds of events and circumstances that are going to crop up in your life. They're to teach you something, they're to help you grow. There might be something of an energetic block in your life or drain on luxury, on play, on personal indulgence. If you try to force these things into your life, they're going to end up feeling empty or exhausting or overly expensive and a waste of energy and time and money. Keep that in mind. Don't try and push where things just aren't flowing naturally. Wherever the South Node is where we tend to get less of something. So when the South Node moves through the sign of Leo, we're going to get less expensive concerts, less theatre shows, less VIP events, less high-end clubs, less fine dining, less popping the champagne, less paying a premium for the atmosphere or the status. All that stuff loses its luster. And we might find ourselves more attracted to, getting our boots on and growing our own veggies, Not very Leo-like at all. We might get less chasing of the dramatic, of all-consuming romantic interactions, those grand romantic gestures or the high-maintenance partners who demand constant attention. No thanks. I'm out of here. That's what's going to happen if that's the kind of person that you're with. It's not going to cut the mustard. We're going to get less splurging on designer clothes, on jewelry, high-end skincare, flashy cars, all those Leo glamour things. We're going to get less buying things simply because they're prestigious or they're a brand or they make a statement that feels deeply, unaligned with who we are right now. We're going to be much more financially restrictive, not necessarily because we have no money to spend, although that can be the case, but more because we just don't see the value in Gucci brands any longer or, L'Oreal skincare or whatever it happens to be that is just, overblown, overpriced. And lastly, we're going to get less or find ourselves less inclined to work on passion projects that are purely about personal expression and hoping for that individual big break. So, all the wanky art that we see out in public spaces and art galleries these days, people are going to be like, pull your head in. That's just not a contribution to our social collective art experience, and about time, because I could tell you what, some of that public art is disgusting, really. So, it's less about, look at my big dramatic expression. And it's more about what contributes to society, to our collective life experience artistically and project-wise and creativity-wise. So they're things that I think probably need to happen. We need a bit of a purge in that area. And that's what the South Node through Leo is going to bring about. But at the same time the South Node moves through Leo, we're going to have the North Node moving into Aquarius for the next 18 months. So the South Node is draining all the excesses of Leo at the same time as the North Node in Aquarius is directing our collective evolution as a society. Society is going to push more more away from the top-heavy centralized control and more towards decentralized, collective, grassroots kind of movements, which is very much the nature of Aquarius. So the focus shifts from celebrating the individual hero or icon to honoring the power of community, of the network, of the team. Yay, bring it on. Aquarius rules science, technology, the digital realm, and large-scale infrastructure. So this transit accelerates the development of global networks. I'm not too keen on globalization at all. I hate it. I'm much more into building nations and nationalism. So we do need to be aware of this because this could be a dark side of the North Node moving through Aquarius where the global push is just ridiculous. But on a technological advancement level, it could mean advances in satellite internet or decentralizing computer systems or grid systems, advanced telecommunications. All those things are very Aquarian, of course, that should be for the public good. Let's hope that's what they use those sorts of advances for. Funding and public attention are going to pivot heavily towards scientific innovation during this 18-month transit, space exploration as well, or alternative energy systems. I don't know why they don't go back to some of the energy systems that were, like steam and hydro and so forth. Why? I saw the other day on the internet that they're proposing or have removed legal restrictions to putting big mirror satellites in the sky to give light to solar farms in the darkness when it's nighttime. I'm like, what kind of nutty, absolutely effed up system is that going to be? Why don't we just go back to using hydro and things like that? God's sakes, these people are utter idiots. Anyway, enough of my soapbox rant. There are going to be some dark sides to the North Node in Aquarius, and we need to be aware of them. Destroying the earth for the sake of the environment is one of the ridiculous momentums we're seeing happening already. It could amp up even more during the next 18 months. But basically, the collective, the masses are going to realize that old world methods can no longer solve new world crises. We're going to have to rejig how the world is running, because let's face it, things are not running as they should right now. So we might have to move in new directions, of course. Now, because Aquarius represents the common people, the collective consciousness is going to shift power away from the elite and hand it to organized groups. Massive coordinated public protests, strikes, social movements, they're going to gain a lot of traction now. And rightly so. These movements are rarely going to be led by a single charismatic figure, which is very Leonian in its quality. Instead, they're going to be more horizontal, leaderless, organized via decentralized digital platforms. But with that in mind, because there's a lot of evil puppet string pullers, we need to really know and do our research and do our due diligence about where this organization that we're following or the strike movement that we're joining with and so on, where is it actually coming from? Who is behind a lot of this stuff? If George Soros has a sniff of anything that you're getting involved with, get the hell out. That kind of thing. We've got to really know what we're standing for and who's behind it. Very, very important, because they will manipulate this North Node in Leo all they can. On an international scale, countries are going to be pushed now to form treaties and unions and collaborative networks to address perceived issues like climate change, no matter how deluded they are by the Fabian Society agenda there. They might be pushed to form treaties and unions and so forth to do with global trade rather than acting unilaterally. Again, something we need to be aware of. It's not all roses wherever the North Node goes. We need to be very conscious about what is really going on at the base of things. Aquarius abhors exclusive gatekeeping. When the North Node transits here, it forces the walls down. So there's a surge in open source software, decentralized finance, peer-to-peer sharing economies, and independent data networks. Information distribution is going to shift dramatically. Traditional top-down broadcasting systems can lose market share to more distributed networks, independent journalism, and crowdsourced information hubs. About bloody time. Enough with the mainstream media rubbish. But again, do your due diligence. Be careful where you're getting your news sourced from. The collective gaze shifts from past traditions to current, or rather current self-interest, to a hyper-focus on what lies ahead for humanity as a species. So public discourse is going to center more heavily on civil liberties, digital privacy, human rights, and the ethical implications of technology. Let's start with data centers. Hello, they're destroying the earth for the sake of surveillance. We need to be up in arms about this. This is not on. No matter what Western country you live in, it is not acceptable. So this is going to be a battleground, I feel, with the North Node in Aquarius. Governments are going to be pushed to experiment with systemic economic reforms. So get ready for a horrific rollout of things like universal basic income. That might happen now. More emphasis on global health policies. Ugh. And new systems that are designed to affect the masses rather than the community, like small communities and so on. Big mass industries, surveillance, health, economics, etc. I mean, they're going to present it, for one, for armed friends, they're going to present it to you like, this is wonderful, it's so good for mankind, get on board. Use your common sense. It's not good to be in a global surveilled economy one bit, or society one bit. So it's worth remembering, just on this topic, if you'll allow me to get on my soapbox for a minute. I know there's a lot of people who like it when I do, but I'm sure there's people who hate it when I do. So bear with me. With all these concepts in mind, it's worth remembering that the true role of a king, which is Leo energy, has always been, in history, to keep the oligarchs in check for the sake of the nation and the people. Like Odysseus in the Odyssey, if you're familiar with that story. Modern day kings, they're actually just overblown oligarchs and puppets for banking mafias. They're not kings in the true sense of the word because they're not keeping the oligarchs in check. So frequently, kings these days have a strong Capricornian astrological connection, not Leo. Not the true Leo, not the good Leo, not the shining, bright, higher vibration of Leo. What concerns me at this time is that we have no Odysseus-style leaders in the West anymore. No one who's in a position of power as an Odysseus-style leader. I know of a few who are on the fringes of politics or moving in political circles. They're the ones we need to be supporting for sure, because the oligarchs are running amok, let's face it. So this transit of the North Node through Aquarius and the South Node through Leo, I don't think is actually going to help the situation in Western countries. And I fear this. I'm just being honest with you. I fear this because we do need an Odysseus-type character to lead us to wipe out the oligarchs, quite frankly. So be on your guard for the next 18 months, dear friends, for the evil oligarchical globalist agendas. Be on your guard in the next 18 months, dear friends. Test everything, research everything, get to the bottom of everything, do a deep dive with everything. We've just had the North Node in Pisces. A lot of deep research has been done. A lot of truth has been uncovered because Pisces is a sign of deep research. And so don't let that time of the North Node in Pisces go to waste. Use what we found out during the North Node in Pisces period and apply it now to the North Node transiting through Aquarius time that we're entering into. So that's what I'm getting the gist of in the collective experience, in the mundane astrology experience. But what about personally when the North Node is in Aquarius? What might we notice? Well, it's time to quiet the personal spotlight and focus more on how we are collaborating in networks. And in a good sense, this is a time for finding, those like-minded people that want to go and, live off grid together or buy a property together and, look after each other and help to raise one another's children and, all that good stuff. What is it? Wild Minds Community or Wild Farms Community in England, I think, is a great one. I forget the exact title of their movement, but it's a great concept. That sort of thing we might be seeing more of, and you might be able to at this time actually find your tribe. It needn't be in an area like that. It could be a different kind of a collaborative network on a different topic that's dear to your heart, but the likelihood of getting involved with a collective is much higher now that the North Node is in Aquarius. So instead of asking, how can I stand out? How can I be seen? The question becomes, how do I contribute my unique gifts to the group or to humanity? Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country is the statement that applies. We're going to get more of things. Wherever the North Node goes is where we get more of things. more collaborative projects over the next 18 months. Tangibly, this might look like joining a community garden or contributing to an open source digital product or volunteering for a local nonprofit or organizing a group hobby where the focus is on the collective output rather than having your name in lights. Fantastic. This is also a time when we stop trying to find one or two people to validate us, and instead we find, as I've already alluded to, our tribe, a larger group of people who share our specific, quirky, and progressive ideas. Brilliant. We're going to get more practical, tech-forward, or utilitarian choices in our personal lives. We're more likely to spend money maybe upgrading that pathetic home Wi-Fi we've got, or buying a functional piece of software that's going to really help us in our work or whatever, or investing in some sort of community shared resources. So upgrading our digital life, now that doesn't mean going and getting the latest surveillance iPhone, but it does mean, revamping how we're using the phones that we've got or the tech that we've got. It can mean learning new software, automating tedious tasks, or streamlining our daily routines, somehow using technological advances. Not all technology is, coming from bad sources or CIA induced. Sometimes there's good stuff that actually helps our lives. But it does mean relying on logic and efficient systems rather than sheer willpower or personal charisma to get things done over the next 18 months. Instead of handling things with a dramatic flair or a manual effort, it's time to invest in building a system, because Aquarius is all about systems, or using a tool that does the heavy lifting for you and the group. So technological advances that are of benefit in your personal life is what we're seeing here more of. More building relationships with people based on shared ideas, on intellectual compatibility. Bravo. What do they call it? Sapiosexual? Love that. It's attracted to people because you share the same mind, the same approach to life, the same quirky thoughts. More building relationships based on friendships as well. True connection. So tangibly, this can mean a dry spell for casual dating, or if you're in a relationship, it can also mean a shift away from the date night drama towards just operating as an efficient, supportive team. Just enjoying each other's company, doing everyday things, doing just life together, rather than having to have the big flashy, oh my God, picnic here with all the fancy this, that, and the other. No, it's much more just enjoying and loving each other's company for the intellectual sparring and the connection that is formed. It's very much the next 18 months could be similar for business partnerships. Less business drama, more let's function as a team here. Let's function in a friendly manner with our businesses. That could be good too. We're going to get more casual group hangouts and backyard potlucks and community festivals and general networking events. That sounds like fun. You might find yourself swapping a $150 ticket for a night out at some expensive joint for just a casual, low-cost gathering with a group of like-minded friends where just everyone brings a dish. I love that sort of thing. That's so fun. It's so fun. So enjoy the community spirit that the North Node through Aquarius is going to bring us, friends. Now, the last time that the nodes were in Leo and Aquarius, let's take a look at what happened. To see this in action, we need to look back at the last time the South Node was in Leo and the North Node in Aquarius, which was sort of 2006 to 2008. And the time before that was 1987 to 1989. Now, these periods frequently featured massive shifts in media distribution. The birth of early streaming or user-generated content overtaking traditional top-down media networks began at this time. We've come full cycle in many ways now, and we could well see the death knell of the traditional commercial media moguls. Yay, bring it on. I hate mainstream media, for those who haven't already gathered that fact. But also, the last time that we had the nodes in these signs, there were some major political leadership turnovers, major economic shifts that targeted luxury and centralized banking systems. I mean, just think what happened in 2008 and the crash that brought about. We're actually still suffering the fallout of that, quite frankly. And a lot of what we've been going through economically and the precariousness of the economic systems right now is a direct result of what happened last time we had the nodes, the North Node in Aquarius. So get ready. We're in for it again, potentially, my friends. So a word of personal advice before we dive into the breakdowns for each sign. The next change of signs, I want to just forewarn you and forearm you about this. When we look at the last time the nodes were in these signs, back in 2006 to 2008, then in 2009, the nodes moved into Capricorn, Cancer. North Node in Capricorn, South Node in Cancer. The last time that happened, people were able to buy homes for pennies on the dollar, where evil banks got government bailouts. That's what happened last time particularly this will be more the case in about 18 months' time at the changeover from Aquarius, Leo to Capricorn, Cancer. This is where we're heading to that kind of dynamic again. Forewarned, forearmed. 18 months' time, it could even happen, or a crash may even happen well before that. But I feel, and I wouldn't be any kind of astrologer if I didn't, I'm not here to scaremonger, but I am here to forewarn, forearm. I think that things could be potentially worse this time than before, than 2006, 2000 to 2008 and beyond, because the Epstein elite have been planning for this. They know how astrology works. They use it. They work with it. And think about that horrendous, you will own nothing and be happy. That is what they're working towards by 2030 agenda. And this is part of it. This astrological cycle is part of what they're trying to build towards. Let this be your preparation time, my friends. We may see house prices go through the same plummeting again that they did last time the South Node was in Cancer. Again, that's going to happen in 18 months' time. This is your preparation time. Do what you need to do, whatever that looks like for your particular circumstances. Be ready. Cover your bases. Do what you can, because a big shift is coming and we don't want to own nothing and be happy. Thank you, Klaus Schwab and all your evil bastards who align with your 2030 agenda. So forewarned, forearmed, my friends, do what you need to do during the next 18 months to stabilize your life, your finances, your home, your circumstances. Now, I need to move away from that topic, which is quite a volatile one. And like I said, I don't want to scare people. I'm not here to do that, but I want people to be prepared. The nodes always begin their time in a new set of signs by sitting at the anaretic degree, the 29th degree of any sign, because the nodes move backwards. So what that means is that the changes the nodes bring often come in with a rude shock, because they start their cycle through a sign at the 29th degree, because they move backwards through the sky. So let me tell you just a bit about the anaretic degrees. The 29th degree of every sign, it's always considered somewhat problematic. Anaretic degrees, they're defined as a peak. So it's the peak of something. When we're looking at a planet moving direct through across a 29th degree, it's like the culmination point, the peak, the top of the mountain, so to speak, before you down the other side again. Well, here we go with the North Node and the South Node moving to the 29th degree, a peak of energy that just comes in like that, to do with Aquarius and Leo and the things that we've been discussing here in this video. Personally, there can be some issues that we have with decision making. Which should I choose? Go here, go there, that job, this house, that house, I don't know. Decision making can be difficult when the nodes are at the 29th degree. We might evaluate and reevaluate situations over and over again before making a move one day, and then, we're going to jump to the other choice the next moment. we're a bit reckless. So be aware of this during the next month or so as the North Node, South Node sit at 29 degrees of Leo and Aquarius. There's a sense of urgency that comes with the anaretic degree as well. The planet is desperate to accomplish its mission when it's at the 29th degree. And so it leads to poor choices. It leads to recklessness. It leads to difficulties and overcompensation. Of course, this is something we just need to be aware about, and then we can act with more consciousness, more awareness, more good decision-making, etc., because knowledge is power. For all these things that I've just talked about and told you about that the nodes represent in these signs, knowledge is power, friends. If you have the knowledge, you can make the right choices that support your future. And of course, we cannot talk about this shift of the nodes without referring to the fact that Jupiter will be sharing the same sign as the true South Node for the next year, starting this week on the 26th of July. But that's something I'm going to explore for all signs in next week's Astro Weather. You won't want to miss it. We're going to be breaking it down for all signs, what Jupiter with the South Node in Leo will be doing particularly in your life. Now, we're going to move to the all signs breakdown in just a minute. The nodes transit a sign and therefore a whole house in whole sign astrology for 18 months at a time. So during that time, you're going to notice the influence in one particular realm of your life related to the house that the nodes are in. And that's what we're going to be exploring now for all signs. Pisces friends, wherever the north node of the moon goes is where we get an increase in passion and desire, and the north node is moving through your 12th house for the next 18 months. So this is going to increase your passion and desire for spiritual practices, for holidays, for faraway travels, to retreat, to explore off the beaten path. It's going to increase the opportunity for secret liaisons and secret dealings, but also for time alone and time out, rest, moving away from the ordinary, everyday, burdensome responsibilities of life and just being free. Doesn't that sound nice, Pisces? Not only that, Pisces, but wherever the South Node is where we find a depletion, a draining happening. And for the next 18 months, Pisces, your South Node is going to be moving through your 6th house. So you're going to be letting go of all your old habits and your routines and all your work responsibilities. You can just put your feet up now, Pisces. Time to let go. Now, look, it's not all happy, happy, joy, joy, but let's explore more about this. It is an excellent time for doing the 12th house kinds of things because 12th house is something you're very familiar with, Pisces. It's spiritual work. It's psychological work. It is hosting retreats, attending retreats, doing things for your own psychic development, getting involved in dance and art and other forms of divinely inspired creativity. In fact, this is a season, the next 18 months, where you can make wonderful progress in your spiritual and artistic life. If you work in these fields, you're going to get more blessing. You know, if you're working with psychology, if you're working with retreats and holidays and the tourist industry in some way, if you're working with, psychic therapies, dance therapy, music therapy, art therapy, that kind of thing, if you're working with film or camera or photography, great successes can be yours with the North Node moving through this realm of the chart. Do watch out, though, Pisces, for sensitivities with your health and with your body. It is like you've just come off a transit of the North Node through the 1st house, and then the South Node goes into the 6th. And it's like, all of a sudden I feel physical fatigue after being so energized for the last 18 months. So, you might find that your digestion's really sensitive and you can't eat what you always have. You might find that you need to, again, rest more, which is 12th house, but because the body just can't keep up with the daily routine any longer. South Node in the 6th house. You also and this is for warned, forearmed, hopefully you've got a nice rainy day bank account there, Pisces, you might find that you lack adequate financial remuneration for your work during this transit. Hopefully you've got other things going on in your chart that can alleviate that. But this is an Artha house in the Vedic system, which is a house of creating resources and money for ourselves. Other people might even be expecting that you'll work for nothing. I mean, when you're an astrologer, that happens all the time. Everybody's always asking you for free readings and so forth, not recognizing the amount of study and money you've poured into learning your skill sets. So don't be surprised, Pisces, if people are coming to you expecting your 2 cents worth on something, your input on something, and wanting you to do it for nothing. So yeah, it can be challenging to get appropriately paid during this time. Hopefully for most of you Pisces watching this, it will be more like, okay, I'm in a place where life is managing itself really well and I can just tune out for a bit, rest for a bit, retreat for a bit. You know, I have a friend who has the South Node in the 6th house and the North Node in the 12th, and she's never had to work in her whole life. She can just, take it easy, and that's obviously one of the highest, most beneficial expressions of this energy. There's no worries. And that is likely to be the case because the South Node in the 6th house, that's a house of worry. And what's the South Node going to do there? Drain away the worry. No more worries, no more freaking out, no more having to pay the bills, no more having to handle the day-to-day expenses. You can just chill and relax. Do be careful though, my Pisces friends, your work environment might grow toxic or unhealthy because the South Node brings toxicity to an area of the chart. It could just be that your workplace becomes plain draining. And if that case, you might look to work from home or look to work from far away. You might, maybe even look to change employment. Make sure you got something else to go to. I don't want anybody out on the street because of this transit. But sometimes we can experience a time without work while we readjust and recalibrate. Now, if you're an employer, my beautiful Pisces friends, then your employees, which are seen by the 6th house, they may cost you in some way. So you may need to sort of be prepared for that. To counteract these negative effects, what we can do is focus on bringing more attention to the 12th house. Ensure that you take regular time out to rest. Go on spiritual retreats. Take holidays. Develop a meditation practice or a similar kind of spiritual practice that you engage with regularly, because that is very much 12th house energy. And in doing so, you alleviate a lot of the negative things that may be happening in the 6th house. You can also pay karma through the 6th house. It's the house of paying karma anyway, Pisces. So when the South Node is transiting here, what we need to do is consciously work with 6th house energy. I would suggest helping others in a practical way. This is not about giving charity, here's a donation and walking away. This is about helping people practically who can't help themselves, the sick, the poor, the uneducated. So it's about giving your time and giving your service to people. Mow the lawn for your elderly neighbour. Take a casserole to a new mum who's struggling to manage. Clean the house for a relative with an illness. Do these things without expecting anything in return, and you will burn karma, because South Node in the house of service gives us the opportunity to do that and clear our karmic slate. Free it up. I've been watching My Name is Earl reruns lately. Love it. Love it. It's very, very much about setting things to rights again, is it not, that show? And that's what the 6th house is all about. It's about fixing things, making things right again, making things better. In this way, you can pay karma, Pisces, and you can redirect the energy of the South Node into something that you choose rather than feeling like you're out of control in a 6th house area of life. So Pisces, as the North Node is moving into the 12th house of rest and retreats for us, and I'm a Pisces rising too, I am looking for expressions of interest for those of you who might like to attend an astrology, health and wellness retreat with my husband David and I. If you would consider joining us this September or October for an astro refresh, with David and I in some sort of stunning scenery or at a beautiful resort here in the USA, then we would love to hear from you. We want to get our head around numbers that we can prepare for and what kind of place we need to organise. You can respond to my questionnaire and let me know if you're interested by going to my post page at the YouTube page. There's a survey there, and we would love to share some uplifting time together with you. Also, my friends, I currently have a special urgent question reading available for $65 at my website. You can ask a yes/no question like, will my boyfriend come back? Will I get the job? Will I sell my house? Any yes/no question, ask it to me and let the astrology support you with its celestial answers, my friends.